Let me ask you something for a second. Think about the last thing you bought that you really wanted. Maybe it was a new phone, a new outfit, or something you'd been eyeing for months. And after you had it, how long did that excitement last? A few days? A week? But then, before you even realized it, you were already looking forward to the next thing. The funny thing is, that's not because you're bad at being satisfied. It's not a discipline problem. And it's not really a money problem either. It's just how our brains have been wired by the world around us. And that's what I want to talk about today. The feeling of enough. Why it's become so hard to find in modern life, and why so many forces around us seem to be pushing us in the opposite direction. So what does enough actually mean? Most people think it's a number, a certain amount of money in the bank, a salary target, or some milestone they need to reach before they can finally relax. But enough isn't really a number. It's a feeling. It's that quiet sense of being able to look at your life and think, you know what? I'm okay. What I have right now is enough. Psychologists have a word for this feeling: satiation, which is the point where a need feels genuinely met. So, for basic needs, our brains are actually pretty good at recognizing them. Just like you eat when you're hungry, you get full, and eventually, you stop. The signal is clear. But when it comes to things like money, status, or success, that signal gets a lot fuzzier. There's always another goal to chase, another promotion to earn, another benchmark that suddenly becomes the new standard. And it's not because we're naturally greedy. For most of human history, having more resources meant a better chance of survival. More food, more security, more social support, all of those things mattered. So our brains evolved to keep looking for more, just in case. The problem is that we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world that has become incredibly good at tapping into that ancient instinct, constantly reminding us of what we don't have and giving us endless reasons to keep wanting the next thing. There's a concept in psychology called the hedonic treadmill. The idea is surprisingly simple. Any good thing that happens in your life, even if it's just the smallest moment, your happiness gets a boost for a while, but eventually it drifts back toward its usual level. Researchers have seen this pattern over and over again. People win the lottery. People land their dream job. People finally achieve a goal they've been working toward for years. At first, it feels amazing. But as time passes, what once felt extraordinary slowly becomes ordinary. And that's the key thing to understand. It's perfectly normal. It's just how the brain works. Your brain is constantly adapting. It takes whatever is new, exciting, or impressive and gradually turns it into your new normal. That promotion stops feeling like a huge achievement and starts feeling like your job. The apartment that once made you excited every morning becomes just home. The salary you once dreamed about becomes the number you're used to seeing in your bank account. And when something becomes normal, it's surprisingly easy for it to stop feeling like enough. That's when the mind starts looking ahead again, toward the next goal, the next upgrade, the next thing that promises to bring back that feeling. The challenge isn't that this happens. The challenge is that we live in a world built around keeping that cycle going. Because the moment you're content, you stop chasing. This is something that consumer industries dislike intensely. Think about this for a moment. Every year, companies spend hundreds of billions of dollars on advertising. And while ads do tell us about products, their real power often comes from making us notice what we don't have. The formula is simple. Create a sense that something is missing, then offer a solution. You might have been perfectly content with your life until an ad made you feel like your phone was outdated or your lifestyle wasn't quite good enough. This idea isn't new. More than a century ago, economist Thorstein Veblen pointed out that people often buy things not just because they need them, but because those things signal success and status. The problem is that once enough people have something, it stops feeling special. So the search moves to the next upgrade. Today, that cycle is everywhere. It's not just advertising anymore, it's social media. But more specifically, it's the algorithm that knows, down to a psychological science, exactly what kind of content makes you feel just slightly inadequate enough to keep scrolling. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube constantly show us carefully curated highlights of other people's lives. And our brains naturally compare. Before long, it's easy to feel like everyone else is ahead, achieving more, or living a better life. And that's the key point. Feeling like you're missing something isn't always an accident. In many ways, it's exactly what the system is designed to make you feel. And this is where it gets a little more personal. Because the problem isn't just that we never feel like we have enough. A lot of us quietly carry the feeling that we are not enough. Maybe you've heard thoughts like these before. I'll feel better about myself when I get that promotion. I'll finally feel successful when I hit a certain income. I'll be confident when I lose the weight. The goal changes, but the pattern stays the same. We tie our self-worth to something in the future. Psychologists call this conditional self-worth, the belief that we'll be worthy, happy, or complete once we achieve a certain thing. The problem is that the feeling we're chasing rarely lasts. This isn't a race in sports. This is the race of life. So the finish line keeps moving. And every time it moves, the world is ready with a new target to chase. A new definition of success. A new version of what enough is supposed to look like. But here's something worth thinking about. If you genuinely felt enough right now, not perfect, not finished, just enough as you are, you'd be much harder to influence by temptations coming from all directions. That's why contentment can feel so rare. Because a person who is at peace with themselves isn't constantly looking for the next thing to complete them. Now, before we go any further, I want to clear something up. Because you might be thinking, so what are you saying? That I shouldn't want more? That ambition is a bad thing? Well, not at all. This isn't about giving up on your goals or pretending that money, success, and growth don't matter. Wanting a better life for yourself and the people you care about is completely natural. In many ways, it's one of the things that drives us forward. The real question isn't what you're chasing, it's why you're chasing it. There's a big difference between working toward something because it genuinely matters to you and working toward it because you believe you'll finally feel worthy once you get there. One comes from a place of purpose. The other comes from a feeling that you're somehow falling behind. And those two paths may look similar from the outside, but they feel very different on the inside. When your goals are connected to your values, building something meaningful, supporting your family, learning, creating, growing, the journey itself can feel rewarding. But when your goals are mainly about proving yourself, keeping up with others, or earning validation, there's often a lingering feeling that no achievement is ever quite enough. You reach one milestone, and almost immediately another one appears. The important thing to remember is that success and contentment are not opposites. You can be ambitious and still appreciate what you already have. You can strive for more while recognizing that your worth isn't waiting for you at the next promotion, paycheck, or achievement. Those things can add to your life. They just can't be the thing that makes you feel complete. So what do you actually do with all of this? The good news is that you don't need to completely change your life. A few small shifts can make a bigger difference than most people realize. First, get clear on what enough actually means for you. Not in a vague way. Not, I want to be comfortable someday. But what does that actually look like? What kind of lifestyle do you want? How much money is enough to support the life you care about? What are you really working toward? Because if you never define enough, it's almost impossible to feel like you've reached it. The target just keeps moving. Second, spend a little more time appreciating what's already here. Psychologists call this savoring. the practice of intentionally noticing and enjoying positive moments while they're happening. It sounds simple, but most of us rush past the good stuff. We achieve something, enjoy it for a few minutes, and immediately move on to the next goal. Sometimes it's worth slowing down and actually letting the moment sink in. A good meal, a conversation with a friend, the progress you've made, something you've worked hard for. Not because everything is perfect, but because if you never pause to appreciate what's good, your brain never gets the chance to register it. And finally, pay attention to your inputs. For just a week, notice how different accounts, apps, and environments make you feel. Which ones leave you feeling inspired? And which ones leave you feeling like you're constantly behind? Whether we realize it or not, the content we consume every day shapes what we believe we should want. And if you're constantly feeding your mind messages that say, you need more, you need better, you need to catch up, it's going to be a lot harder to recognize when you already have enough. You may not control everything that influences you, but you do get a say in what you give your attention to. Look, I'm not going to pretend that finding a sense of enough is easy. But I think something changes the moment you start to see what's really going on. The moment you start to understand why you feel like you're always needing to chase something, that's when it starts to lose its power over you. You don't have to give up on ambition. You don't have to stop setting goals or wanting a better life. You just don't have to treat every desire as proof that something is missing in you. But you can always want more and still appreciate what you already have. You can keep growing without believing your worth is waiting somewhere in the future. Maybe that's what finding enough really means. And in a world that constantly tells you otherwise, that's a surprisingly powerful thing to remember. In the end, if you made it this far, thank you. Genuinely. Because this stuff isn't easy to sit with. It's uncomfortable to realize how much of our wanting has been quietly engineered for us. But that discomfort? That's the beginning of something, don't you think? Share this if it meant something to anybody you know, okay? I'll see you in the next one.